So, there's been a thing I was thinking about recently, and it has to do with like group dynamics. Now, I mentioned before that I tend to think, I don't know exactly how I said it, but I believe communities are a good thing, right? Depending, it's kind of predicated on the reason behind why the group was brought together, the characteristic or the cause around which it was formed, and the people involved as well, probably. So if you, I tend to think that group dynamics function as an amplifier for whatever characteristic or cause that brought them together. So if you have a group of cannibals, they're probably going to be a lot more into cannibalism than they would have been individually. If you have a group of firemen, they're probably going to be a lot more into fighting fires than they would have been individually. That being said, it feels like, in light of this recent election, there's kind of a point against communities, or maybe a disadvantage to being in a community. And I think it has to do with like rivalries or where a situation where you have very, very divisive relations between two opposing groups. It feels like, by and large, if you're in one group and you have an opposing group, that opposing group will have a tendency to equate everyone in your group with the worst member that they perceive as being a part of your group, right? So I don't know if this is necessarily a good or a bad strategy. It's bad in that you still have to recognize autonomy within that group. I mean, people still are individuals and they have autonomy, right? But I think it's also a good strategy in that it feels like you don't generally infer virtue to members of an opposing viewpoint. You don't assume self-restraint or that they're going to fix their own issues. To explain what I'm meaning, like if you have Andrew Tate on your side, the opposing group is going to look at your group and say, oh, well, that's Andrew Tate's group. That's the future of their group. They're all going to end up like Andrew Tate. They're not going to assume self-restraint on your part. They're not going to assume that you're going to fix that issue yourselves, right? If you have Hassan Piker in your group, people are going to look at your group and say, oh, wow, that's Hassan Piker's group. That's the future of their group. They're not going to express self-restraint. That's what they're all going to end up like. They're not going to fix their own problem. And like I said, I didn't say this, but it feels like this strategy could save you some hard knocks. But on the other hand, you also have to recognize autonomy on the part of individuals within that group. Yeah, and I think this in part is responsible for the kind of divisive atmosphere we have in our country at this point. I feel like at the very least it would be a good thing if we toned this rivalry down a couple of notches. Anyways, thanks for watching. If you like the video, please press the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment if you want to.